Hi, welcome to Tuesday night practice session. I want to look at a transition that takes us from one direction to another. Before we get into that, I want to do a first third, and I want you to just notice every time we change direction, what that's like. So. And go. So the transition I want to look at is coming out of Four Corners and going into Wardoff Left. But let's start with an easier transition just to get the basic idea of what I want to look at. So let's look at going into, from Wardoff Left to Wardoff Right. We can just sort of swap back and forth, Wardoff Left, Wardoff Right, Wardoff Left, Wardoff Right, so that when you, actually I'll face this way, when you get to Wardoff Right, you just let the top hand turn palm down and you make your ball of air and you step back into Wardoff Left so that you can just loop Wardoff Left, Wardoff Right, back to Wardoff Left, etc. So let's do that a little bit and become aware of what you do in that moment of transition. So from Wardoff Left, begin. You've got your weight in your left leg, step, Wardoff right. Right hand turns palm down, ball of air, turn to the corner, step, Wardoff left. So do this a few times just so that you get familiar with this choreography, and then we can take a look at what I want to work on. All the weight in the right leg, or if you're with me, wherever you are, weight into the front leg, turn, ball of air. All the weight in the front leg, turn, ball of air. Do one more round of this, and then I'll stop and talk about it. And take a break. So we have to get all the weight into one leg in order to take a step in the next direction so that we can move on. But when we do that, there's the possibility of thinking of it as this kind of an action. I'll just do it from Wardoff Left. That to get into the front leg fully, the thought is, well, I must have to go all the way forward to do that, and then I'm actually quite far away from where I want to step. And so then I'm somewhere far, and the step is disconnected, and then I get myself where I'm going, and then I think, okay, I have to go all the way out over this leg so that I'm 100%, so that I can take the next step. And you can see what happens to me when I do that. I start leaning. It's much more difficult to take the step. So there's another way to think about getting into that leg fully. And that is the idea of the spiral. So that will, among other things, keep you upright. And I don't just go forward into that leg. Instead, I let there be a vertical line that I use to spiral around and start taking me in the new direction. So this issue of how you change direction is, we're always doing it, and it's worth taking a look at. So from Wardoff Left, let's just get this going a little bit. Sit into your left leg and spiral to the right. So there's a sense of connecting to the ground, but it turns you right away. Now come back to it again, and just doing that much. Spiraling into the left leg to turn you to the right. And now this time, let's do the other thing where you go forward toward the leg you want to shift into. In this case, it's the left leg. So you come all the way forward and then turn and feel what that does. So now come back to your Wardoff, and I want you to spiral into the left leg, turning to the right. Now, you should have yourself upright, and the empty foot is free for you to take the step and shift and complete the move. So now the same thing's going to happen here. You're going to spiral into your right leg to turn to the left. Take a step and shift. So just do it this way now a few times. Spiraling and letting that turn you. Step. Spiral, make the ball of air, and let that turn you to the left. And step. And again, spiral. And back to Wardoff Left. Spiraling to turn. And rest your legs a moment. So this spiraling is an accessible way to redirect. We all can picture a spiral, and you know that you can get off on any bit of that trajectory and let it lead you in a new direction. So that's what we're trying to do here. And I want to just do this so that I turn to face you so that I can clarify what I'm thinking about the stepping leg. So I'm going to spiral and turn, and the spiral can play out all the way into your foot so that it doesn't have to be a broken up activity where I spiral and then I step. I know we were just doing that because I was trying to get you to spiral. But now I want you to see if you can make that spiral actually play out to your foot for the step, so that the spiral doesn't just turn your torso, it actually makes the whole motion play out to the new direction. So let's try doing that a little bit. I never know which way to face. I'll do it this way now. Spiral and let that play out to the foot and make it step. Come into Wardoff right. And sit into the leg, spiral, let that play out to the foot. So that your step is actually the end of this spiraling. And just do it a few times and see if you can feel how that spiral can lead your foot as well as your torso. And it's not in lockstep, it plays out. And then stop when you get to Wardoff Left. And now this time, spiral without letting it go out to your foot, and then make an extra action to make the step so that you feel the difference. So you spiral and step. Spiral and step. And now this time, put it all together. Feel that the step is part of the spiral, the end of the chain. And we'll do one more round, Wardoff Left, Wardoff Right, and back to Wardoff Left. And rest your legs. So this idea will help you with more difficult changes of direction as well. And I think one of the most difficult ones we're asked to make in the form is coming out of the fourth corner and going into Wardoff Left. So let's kind of warm up to that section of the form. We'll go from single whip to single whip. We'll go through 4 corners, come out of 4 corners, and get ourselves back to the next single whip. And go. And rest your legs. So obviously there's all kinds of changing direction going through that whole segment of the form. But I want to just zoom in on that one transition coming out of the fourth corner and going into Wardoff Left. I distinctly remember getting corrected on that by Jane, because I was doing, the instruction was shift to the right, and so I shifted to the right and then tried to make the step, and you see how much I'm leaning. And Jane said, "Why are you going that way? The move is here. You want to..." And I was like, "Well, you said to shift into your right leg." "Well, yeah, shift into your right leg, but you're turning to the left." And that was a big revelation to me, that this idea is, as soon as I drop into the right leg, it's no longer my front leg, it's my back leg. And now I'm stepping for a 70-30 that brings me to this direction. So if you've taken class with us, you've heard us say, now your front leg becomes your back leg. And that sounds strange and may not make sense, but I hope that now you're starting to see how that makes sense. Because if you think of, I'm just going to do this facing you, this first part. If you think of this as a front leg, you'll go this way. But if you're thinking, as soon as I shift into it, it's my back leg, and what I'm going to do is move in a new direction, that's a whole different perspective. So let's do it from the fourth corner and just practice getting into that making that transition, feeling the difference between shifting into a front leg or shifting into the back leg. So, and I guess I'll keep doing this, and Lee, you do whatever seems appropriate. So you're in your fourth corner, right leg is forward, right hand is high, and spiral into the right leg. It is now your back leg. And let that help you get into Wardoff Left. And let's just do that again. Your right leg is now your back leg. This time, treat it like a front leg. So, shift toward your right leg and then turn and try to step. And notice what happens to your body upright. It's very likely that you have to lean to get through that section. So, do it again, and this time, let it be the back leg. This should help keep you upright. Great, rest your legs. So this feeling, the front leg becomes your back leg, is a great way to instantly change, even though when I'm here and I make it my back leg, I'm not over there already, but I'm no longer thinking toward that corner. I've left the corner and I'm now moving in a new direction. And part of one of the things that really helps, especially through the Four Corners section, is having an awareness of where you're going, even though you're not lined up there yet, where you are perceiving your direction will help facilitate the whole body flowing in that direction. And so when I think of this as a front leg and I go forward, I'm taking myself away from the place that I'm actually aiming, and it makes it that much more difficult to figure out how to get myself over there. If at this moment I start spiraling, well, I'm not over there yet, but my awareness and energy understands that this is the direction that I'm heading. And so there's an aspect of the mind that gets helped by how you think about shifting into a leg in order to start a transition in a new direction. So let's do it again, and I want you to just become aware of how that feels. We'll do it both ways, and I want you to just notice what happens to your whole sense of awareness when we do it the two different ways. So go into the leg as a back leg, and feel how that changes your awareness right away. We don't even need to step yet. Come back into it. And this time you're going to move toward the front leg. You're going in that same direction. So head toward your front leg and then turn. And just see what that does to your awareness. So do it that way another time, going toward that leg. And turn. And now we'll do it so that the right leg becomes the back leg. And you're going to spiral into your right leg as you turn. And one more time with the front leg turning into a back leg in an instant. And go. Okay. So rest your legs. So with any luck that felt different, I want you to now notice how the empty foot pivots. You know, we've talked about this a lot. We don't want to pivot it in lockstep. It's not that I do this and everything turns at once. It needs to play out. So into your new back leg and feel the place where the foot wants to start to pivot. So just do it a couple times, spiraling into the right leg, and notice how it starts to pivot. And again. Okay, one more time. And rest your legs. So it comes up to the ball, but it doesn't instantly turn. And that enables it to work its way, spiral, work its way out down to your foot. Now the other piece of this that's super important is cross balance and your cross balance hand. So I'm going to do this facing you once so that you see my hand. When I start turning, weight is in this leg. That means this hand, the dropping left hand that's turning palm up, is going to be the counterbalance to it. So as I turn here, this is really critical for helping me keep my balance long enough to let that play out and help the foot take a step. It's much more difficult if you don't let that hand counterbalance the leg that you're standing on. So let's do it again. As you shift into your right leg, feel the left hand balancing it. Feel it turn palm up, and then notice how using that feeling can help you place the foot. Now this is a tough step. I will fall over sometimes too, so don't feel bad if you do, and give me a break if I do. But the important thing is feeling that in the hand so that the foot can continue the step. So let's just do it a few times, and with any luck, I won't fall over. And spiraling, left hand helps you, left foot spirals and completes that energy. Do it again. Spiraling and placing that foot. And again. Now, it's possible that that doesn't just all flow, and you get yourself into this place, and then it's another action to make the step. That's okay. When I hit it just right, I think that's that spiral that plays out and helps me move the foot and makes it one energy. Is my best shot, but that doesn't always work. So don't feel bad if you come to the middle place and get your balance and get your feeling, and then you take the step. It will still help to have the left hand and to have spiraled into the right leg and all that stuff. So this is aspirational. When I hit it just right, that's the feeling, and it doesn't always happen. So let's do it again, and then we're pretty close to splitting up. So, go. We'll do it a couple more times, and then I'll let Lee take over. And once more. So one of the most difficult transitions in the form. With any luck, it's feeling a little more under your grasp now.
Let's do some more. I don't want to get all jargony, but there's a couple concepts that are worth thinking about. Spirals, the way they work is they go around in a circle, or a circular shape, coming closer to a center or going farther away from a center. And they tend to be flat, even as we talk about spirals being three-dimensional. Helixes, or if you think of it like an auger or a drill, have that circular spiral motion, but they also have something that's happening in the third dimension. And so, we'll say spiral, but we're really talking more about like a drill or an auger going into ground or wood and then coming out of it. So when you're here at the end of four corners and you're doing this, you're not just spiraling in the horizontal plane. If you do that, then you're skating across the ground. You're not changing your relationship to the ground. You're not using your root. So as you do this, you need to be augering down into the ground to take that step. And just like if you're drilling wood, you drill in and then you can bring the drill back out. So the drill can go both ways in the wood. So that helix, that auger, goes into the wood and it also comes back out of the wood. You're drilling a hole in the ground and you use your auger and it drills down into the ground and then it can drill back up out of the ground. So when we say spiral, which is what we say because normal people don't worry about the differences between spirals and helixes and all that stuff. They're all spirals. That's what the word means when normal people use it. But when we say spiral, we always want to have that notion of changing your relationship to the ground. You're either spiraling down into the ground or you're allowing a spiral to come back up out of the ground. And so we do both things. In the transition from the end of four corners, it's a spiral down into the ground that results as I'm augering down into the ground, as I'm drilling my helix into the ground, as I'm spiraling down into the ground. It goes all the way to here. And now I have an expansive, and again, notice what's happening. My waist is turning as I do this, so now I'm augering out of the ground as I expand into Wardoff Left. Versus doing everything on the horizontal plane, where then I'm just turning. This doesn't do anything. And I didn't do anything with ground there. And so this ended up being force as I do that. So I want to then spend the rest of our time this morning looking at the augers and helixes, commonly called spirals, all the way through four corners, so that you start to get the feeling for the difference of those. So let's start out and look at this transition from the fourth corner to Wardoff Left another couple times. Beth will continue facing the way we would in the form. I'll face some other direction so that I feel like I can be talking to you while we do this. So you're just out of the fourth corner. Right foot is forward. Left hand is full and pushed out. And now drill down into the ground, turning and step and start to shift. And now feel yourself expanding into Wardoff Left. And do that again. So fourth corner, right foot forward, left hand is matching it. And spiral down into the ground, footsteps, shift. And now as you come into the final posture, notice that your waist continues to turn. And the waist only arrives right as you get to the final posture. So you want to make sure that the waist is turning all the way through here. I don't come down and get here, and then the last part of the posture is nothing. Watch me do that again. When I do this, this is just shifting from one leg to the other. And notice that my waist is not turning. And now that I'm here, I turn my waist. And it's not that. The waist is turning all the way through there. So do this again and make sure your waist turns all the way into Wardoff Left. So fourth corner, right foot forward. And spiraling and step. And now as you shift, make sure your waist continues to turn all the way through there. The waist doesn't reach your new Wardoff Left position until exactly as you get to the final posture. Once more. Last corner. And go. Waist is turning all of the way. Great. So there's an important point in there. Beth talked about it at the end here of, are you able to get the foot to step as part of the same motion as you spiral down into the ground, as you drill your helix into the earth? Or do you have to do it as a separate thing? And that'll really determine, that'll depend on, how present you are in the moment and how good you are, how able you are to work with your root. What I like to do is what she was saying, but I can't always get it, which is that it is one motion, spiraling, stepping, and shifting until I get to this 50-50 point. And now from here, everything expands out as I come into Wardoff Left. Now, I can't always get that. So sometimes I have to come down here and then do another drop into the ground, allow that to step the foot and continue down into the ground. You'll notice that when I did that, I drop. There's a rebound which inflates everything, lets the foot step, and then lets me sink again. And so that's got an extra little pumping it one more time. Give it one more pump, because I didn't have enough depth in my root to get all the way there with one. So that's great, because if you're doing that stuff, then you're really working with the ground, and you're noticing when you just turn on the surface of it, which is fundamentally empty in the sense of without meaning, not empty in the sense of full and empty, but empty in the sense of without meaning. So when I do this and I just turn, this is like sitting on a turntable, and nothing's happening. There's no reason I'm going to any one place. There's no reason I don't just continue turning. It has no meaning. And so if you're working with this and you find that you have to give it another pump, you have to do another round of this, that's great, because then you're really working with it. Some of the other spirals, helixes that we work with in Four Corners are different. So let's do single whip to single whip via Four Corners again. And I want you to pay special attention to the various spirals that we make as we go through this and how we step. And in particular, watch what happens between the first and second corners, and then between the third and the fourth corners. And then compare that to how you got out of the fourth corner into the Wardoff. So taking it from single whip, go ahead. Of course, there's spirals everywhere. Okay, now watch this. Spiraling. Oh, I guess we're going to keep going. Sorry. Great. So one of the things to make all this work is to make sure that the waist continues turning. We looked at that in going from the fourth corner into Wardoff Left. It's really important going from the first corner into the second corner or the third corner into the fourth corner. And so as you're doing this, you sit back and turn, and then you're going to shift from the right leg to the left leg. Be really careful that you haven't already shifted into the left leg. This happens to people a lot. They sit back and turn, and they're already in the left leg, right? My weight's not on my right leg anymore. Make sure it stays in the right leg. Sit back and turn. You're in the right leg. And then look where my waist is. As I shift, which makes the ball of air, it continues to turn. I didn't just get here and shift without turning. As I do that shift, my waist continues to turn, and then as I step, I'm not stepping behind myself. As I step, I continue to turn as I go through there. So let's take it single whip through four corners, and we'll just go to Wardoff Left because that's where we both tried to stop this last time. So we'll just do that much. And I want you to really pay attention to all of those transitions and make sure your waist is continuing to turn. Now, some of them are smaller, and so it might be easier for you. For example, after I've just gotten into, I've come from the first corner to the second corner, and I sit back and I'm going to step for the third corner and make sure the waist turns as you do that, as opposed to sitting back and moving your foot. Make sure that when you do that, the waist turns as you go through there. Make sure that when you step from single whip to the first corner, that the waist is turning. I sit back and I turn. As I shift, I'm turning. As I step, my waist is turning. So it's, again, easy for this to become linear. So make sure that all of those have turn in the waist. So single whip, and we'll go through four corners up to Wardoff Left. So sit back, turn. As you shift into the left leg, continue to turn. And now as you step with the right foot, continue to turn. Spiral into the right leg and step. First corner. Sit back and turn. Okay, stop here for a second. Your right palm is up. Your left hand is vertical. Your weight is in your right foot. Make sure you can pick up the left foot. If you can't, change. Weight is in the right foot. You can pick up the left foot. Notice where your waist is. And now, as you shift, make sure the waist is continuing to turn. Notice where you are. As you step, make sure the waist is continuing to turn. And then obviously, into the second corner, you turn your waist all the way. Continue, sit back. As you step, make sure your waist turns. Shift. Third corner. Sit back and turn. Make sure the weight is in the right leg. Shift to the left. Ball of air, waist turned. Step, waist is turning. And then as you come into the fourth move, waist turns. Okay, auger into the right leg, turning, footsteps, shift. And now as you come the rest of the way into the posture, make sure the waist turns all of the way. Great. So, waist is commander, all motion comes from the dantian. All of those things mean you got to be using it all the time. And especially when moves get complicated, we will simplify and we'll end up just going back and forth from one leg to the other without any of this spiraling, augering quality. And so we want to get that, and what better place than four corners to really rub your nose in it. So let's do that once more. Let's do it twice more, and I'm going to stop you the first time at the 50-50 places. Now, we don't tend to spend very much time there because they're transitional. That's the place where you cross from one side of the yin-yang into the other. And it's a thin little line between the two of them. You don't spend time balanced up on that thin little line. You're on one side of the line, you're on the other side of the line. You're on the first side of the line, you're on the other side of the line. So we don't tend to spend much time in the 50-50. But the 50-50 is the place where your relationship with your two legs changes, where what you're doing with one leg now changes into the other leg. And so it's really important to see that. So when I'm doing this from the fourth corner into Wardoff Left, I'm spiraling down, 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 down. Right there, I'm at 50 plus 1 grain of sand and 50 minus 1 grain of sand. And then I change it, and that's where I go into the other leg. And so I'm going to stop you at the 50-50 places because I want you to notice the difference from one leg to the other, and I want you to know that you haven't done all of your waist turn here. When I get to this 50-50 place, I'm not already all the way here. I've still got lots of turn to do. So we will stop at 50-50 going into each of the corners, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we'll also stop at 50-50 coming out of corner 4 and going into Wardoff Left. So we'll do it once with the breaks, and then we'll do it without the breaks, so you get a chance to try to make this actually happen in action. So single whip. Sit back and turn. As you shift, make sure you're continuing to turn. As you step, make sure you're continuing to turn. Shift, ball of air, step, and shift. Stop at the 50-50 place. Feel that your back leg is 50 plus 1 grain of sand. Your front leg is 50 minus 1 grain of sand. Your waist has not reached the corner yet. And then change that grain of sand and finish the move. Sit back and turn. Make sure you're still in your right leg. Shift. And step. And start to shift. Stop at the 50-50 place. Back leg has 50% of your weight plus 1 grain of sand. Front leg is missing that grain of sand. Move the grain of sand and continue turning your waist. Sit back. Turn the waist in order to step. Shift. Step and start shifting. 50-50. You're still standing on your back leg. Your waist has not reached the corner yet. Move the grain of sand. Finish. Sit back and make sure the weight's still on the right leg. Shift. Step and shift. 50-50. Move the grain of sand. Finish. Spiral into the right leg. Step and shift. Stop at 50-50. One grain of sand more in the back leg. Move the grain of sand. Turn the waist. Finish. Great. Again, without the stops. But notice those places where your relationship with the ground goes from going into the ground to coming out of the ground, where your back leg goes from supporting you to now releasing and having the other leg support you, where your waist still turns. You haven't finished that through the move. So single whip, and we'll just run through it. Go ahead. So that point where empty and full change in the legs, where one leg goes from being the supportive leg to the other leg now carrying you, where you change from augering down into the ground to allowing this to come up out of the ground into the next posture. That's a really important point. Now, we tend to not spend all that much time on that because in order to get that, you really have to have your separation of empty and full in the legs, right? And so we do all of this work with the 100% postures, really making sure that you've got your legs separate because, nobody can fool themselves there. Either you really are holding yourself up on one leg and so you can pick the other one up and do stuff with it, or you're not, and when you pick it up, you've got a chance of noticing that you had to move the body. So we do that to rub your noses in it so that you really see the difference between them, and because it requires a specific kind of strength through the body and the legs, and working at the 100% separated places is a great place to build that strength. Now, it's not just raw muscular strength, although it is that also, but it's also how you relate to your legs with your mind. And so working at the extremes, working at the edges, helps you really see that difference. But the thing about the Tai Chi symbol, the yin-yang symbol, is there's no gray. You're in one side, and you've got the other side, and they're different colors, and when you cross between them in an instant, the colors change. And so the distinction between 50 plus 1 grain of sand and 50 minus 1 grain of sand, and then moving that grain of sand to be in the other leg, should be just as big to you as the distinction between being completely in one leg and having the other leg completely empty. The difference between the two legs here is the same hugeness of difference that the difference between the two legs here and here is. So you need to get that real clear. When you cross the line in the yin-yang symbol, you go from dark to light in an instant. You don't go through a twilight region. Or you go from light to dark. You don't go through dusk. It's like being at the equator where the sun just goes down and comes back up, as opposed to our northern latitude, long summer twilights. So it happens bang, bang. And that's easy to see at the edges. It's harder to see in the middle here, but it needs to become just as important. And a lot of other things will change at that moment. Which leg is holding you up, which direction you're relating to the ground in. There's a whole bunch that changes at that point. So you want to really have that feeling different. Okay, so then there's one other thing I want to talk about, which is, I said the spirals go both ways, right? You can drill down into the ground and you can drill up out of the ground. And Four Corners illustrates all of these for us. So what's happening in Four Corners, I've reached a full move and I sit back and turn. This is an augering down into the ground as I do this, drilling down into the ground. When I shift from one leg to the other, I'm actually filling and coming up a little bit so that I can now auger down as I step and shift to the 50-50 place. That's a place where you might need to pump it again. You may not be able to get yourself stepped and have it be the same drilling down into the ground to get you to 50-50. You may need to get here in order to step, pump the ground, let that result in a step, and then have another augering down to get to the 50-50. That's okay, because all the way through there, you're authentically, legitimately working with the ground. Always opposed to skating or hydroplaning, where we just go across the surface. So these ones here, I've got a down into the ground, up out of the ground, down into the ground, up out of the ground, as you go through there. And it's important to say this is a motion that goes through the body rather than throwing the meat around. We don't want to be shaking our meat. We want to have the motion that goes down or comes back up, going through the body on the inside, not perturbing the whole body. So Four Corners is not like this. It's not a jack-in-the-box. So you may get a little, a micro jack as you're first working with this, and that's okay. But then spend time to get it to go through the body rather than perturbing the body. So let's do single whip through Four Corners to Wardoff Left another time or two, and I think we'll call it a session then. Okay, so single whip. Sitting back and turning. Okay, now letting the motion drop down through your body to the 50-50 place, and now letting it express through the body up and out. Sit back and down all the way to here. Fill as you shift so that you can sink again in order to step and shift to the 50-50. And fill into the final posture. Towards the ground, rebounding from the ground, towards the ground, rebounding from the ground, out through your hands into your opponent, back down towards the ground and turning. Fill and release all the way down to the 50-50. Fill, drill down into the ground to the 50-50. Let that rebound fill you into Wardoff Left. Now, when I watch this video, when we, practice along with ourselves, and with, all of you who join us at the premiere time, I'll be able to see if I bobbled or not there. But hopefully it didn't look like a lot of up and downing, even as I'm talking the up and down. So you really want to feel that go through the body. Any of that up and down that gets stuck in your body is wasted energy. We want to be conduits for the strength we tap from the earth, as we allow that to come through us and fill our space, the people we're with, all of that. We want to be conduits. And if instead it's throwing the meat around, that means some of that energy is getting wasted on causing an effect on you. This is part of why powerful Tai Chi pushes don't feel like anything. If you push or throw somebody and you feel like, I really did that, you wasted a lot of that energy. And if you feel it, it's taking effect in you. You want it to go through you. You want it to go through you. So Tai Chi feels powerless, even as there's great amounts of energy and force that is going through our bodies. It should feel powerless. So I really don't want to feel like this is me. I want it to be an energy that goes through me. And it really should have almost no effect on my external body, if I get that right. Lots of effect on the inside. There's a lot going on the inside. But it shouldn't be throwing the meat around. It shouldn't be making a big external change. So now, having said that, when we run this video for the first time, I'll give myself a critical look and see how I did with that, because I can always get better at it. But you really want to have that. And you don't want this bobbling up and down thing to be happening in your body. Even as the motion, your relationship to the ground is auguring down, is coming back out of the ground, is going down, is coming back out of the ground. You don't want to be going along for the ride. So let's do it twice more, that section. And I will do my best not to talk very much so that you have a chance to work on it yourself. And then we'll call it an evening. Single whip. Go ahead. Through the body. Drilling down, filling up, drilling down. Drilling down, 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 filling all around yourself. Once more, single whip, and go. Great. So we're going to try to spend a little time working from here through some of the moves we haven't spent a lot of time with, and looking at how all this stuff plays out through all that. So have great evenings, and we'll see you all next time.